Good morning, everyone. Ted Simpson here, certified Bob Ross instructor. I've got myself a 12 by 16. It's an older canvas here. I put a little bit of spray on the back and it tightened up a little crazily on me. That's all right. It'll look all right when we're done here. So I had an old canvas laying around. I had a little time before my class later today, so I thought I would do a fun little painting for you. Now this is based off of an early season of the Joy of Painting. I believe the episode is called Mountain Mist, Season 6. Season 6, Bob was still using those old 2.5-inch wide brushes. Even bigger than this one, even wider than this one. And I'm going to play around and let's go over the colors here. Titanium white, we've got alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black, Van Dyke brown, dark sienna, sap green, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, bright red. A lot of yellow ochre. I had a little bit of a dried bit in my tube and a little more came out than I expected. So let's start off with our sky. Now a lot of times Bob has all these colors kind of ramped down. Not today. But I'm just going to throw on a little bit of the alizarin crimson. Maybe we'll have some kind of things happening up here in the sky. And if you've watched me before, I use an episode as kind of a takeoff, you know. I don't try to follow it exactly. I like to break things down, show you how we can change things and make things a little bit more our own. So I cleaned off my brush, and now I'm going to go over that little bit of the alizarin crimson and soften it a little bit, take out those brush marks. Yeah, very, very simple, very, very easy. Just to soften this out. And when you're doing that, if you find yourself softening too much, you can always throw a little bit of color back on to give it some interest there, give it some flavor. I'll wipe off the excess. It's always easier to blend, for me anyway, with a clean brush. Now, in whatever spaces I have in between those crimson stripes, I'm going to take just a little bit of the phthalo blue, and let's just feather in some color here. I'm holding my brush and just making these little rocking strokes, crisscrossing, getting some color up there. And you can make this as pale as you like. The more you work it, the more it mixes with the liquid white, and it will lighten right up there on the canvas. Just getting some up in there. Maybe a little right there. There. Now before I clean my brush, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and clean the brush. There I go. Just wiping the excess paint out. I don't have to go through the whole brush cleaning procedure with the paint thinner. You can if you want, but if you just wipe away the excess paint, it'll save you a little time. Crisscrossing, little crisscross strokes, putting some blends up there in the sky, softening the edges of the crimson. You can cover this right up, turn that all lavender if you really want to. There we go. Whatever's in my brush, I can fill in any of those blank spots. Already we got some interesting things happening up here. So, I'm going to take a little bit of crimson here, pull some down, tap some in. Let's try just a touch of the Prussian blue. Lots of tapping. We're just going to mix this color right on the brush. Still a little to the red side. It takes such a small amount of blue to make our purpley color. Maybe a touch of the phthalo blue too. What the heck? And just gonna put some color down here for our water. Not much. Not much at all. Clean my brush. And let's work that in a little bit. You can see those spots where I missed it with the liquid white. You just have to hit it a bit harder. Ooh, boy, that canvas is a little too firm now, a little too wrinkly. That's all right. This is just a practice, just a warm up. There we go. I think Bob left even a bigger white area between his sky and the water. Doesn't really matter. The lighter it is, the mistier your scene will look. So, boy, we just jumped right into the mountain now. And I've got my small knife here. You could definitely use the bigger knife if you wanted to. And let's see. Get rid of this a little bit here. I'm just going to go into, let's see, some Prussian blue, a little less Prussian blue, some midnight black, a little bit of the Van Dyke brown. Let's see what we get. There we go. Still awfully to the blue side. I tell you what, I'm going to save that for later. Just take a little bit of it, add some more black and some Van Dyke brown. I want it a little more to the brown side of the three colors. And I cut off my little roll of paint. Sometimes get a little more. Now up here we just push right in. I'm holding my knife relatively flat here. You just press in and just make a little outside edge, just a little start to your mountain. As you're doing this, you can always add another peak. You're just pushing that paint right into the fabric and moving the knife. Now we can press in like that, or we can scrape a little color off and use that to build our mountain down a little bit. Or just reload. I'm going to change this peak. I'm going to make it a little pointier. See, when I lift the angle up, I can scrape the color off and use it to add more. Now, we don't have too much going on here. This is a fairly small mountain in relative to the rest of the painting. But of course, as always, you can do whatever you like. Make it as big as you want, as many peaks. I'm just going to lightly scrape away the excess color. And now that I blended all that out, I think I need to clean my brush. So I've got my bucket of paint thinner here with a screen at the bottom. I swish and swirl. Shake off the excess. If you've ever seen my basics playlist, I show you how to create your own beater bucket as to not spray all the paint thinner everywhere. Now I really want to make sure I get all that paint thinner off. Beating the devil out of it is fun. Sometimes there I just press it into or give it a little stir into a dry, clean paper towel just to get all that paint thinner off. Now, quite often we just take our brush, gently press in, and we pull. And we start to soften this. In this particular episode, Bob does the tapping. Normally we do this at the end of the mountain, creating some mist and such at the base, but it just goes to show you we can tap the excess color down and out. A little bit going out to the right, some of it coming down to the left. Just by tapping, we create this already the start of our misting effect here at the base of our mountain. See how it mixes with the liquid white and automatically gets lighter and lighter as we move our way down. Boy, that mountain just grows and grows if you let it. There it is. No big deal. The object is to use that color, create a nice dark background to our mountain so that we can see all the highlights and shadows. Crazy little painting today. It's an interesting one. We're going to start with a little bit of yellow ochre and dark sienna. Looks like my dark sienna needs a little bit. Look at that dried chunk right there. Sometimes when the tube starts to get old, if you, empty, and you don't get the lid on it, a little bit of air gets in there and can start to cure your paint right in the tube. So what I'm going to do is our highlight is going to be brown today. Holding my knife relatively flat to the canvas, not completely flat, and just let this paint just come off where it wants. I'm reloading, putting some color out here. Our light source is coming from the right, so this is actually the highlighted portion of the mountain for now. Old brown mountain. Covering some of this up here, leaving a little bit of the background shade. Now I'm using the small edge of my knife to fit into these smaller peaks. See that? Pulling a little down. There we go. Now this is an interesting color Bob creates. I'm going to use some of this color I set aside. It's the blue, black, and brown. To that, I'm going to add a little white. I'm not sure if it's exactly what Bob did here, but it's in the realm. It's in the ballpark. Some blue, some black, some brown, and you can play around until you find whatever color you're liking here. There it is. And I'll stick with that small edge of my knife over here, and we just want to pull a little bit of this color out. Ooh, I think it needs to be just a little lighter. If you're having a hard time seeing it, there we go. Now bring it over here so I can play around a little easier. Let's see if that lightens it up a little bit. Oh yeah, that works a little better. Just putting some out here, bringing this now down a little to the left. Just laying it on. Getting right up to that highlight and then bringing it the opposite direction. There we go. And a little bit of variation is good. Watch this. I'm going to change that, add a little bit of the dark color, add a little bit more white, just to see some of these stripes. Maybe just a touch more blue. There we go. And pull the opposite direction here. Get a little color out there. Bringing this right up around, sort of a little swooping effect here. But as you know, if you've ever watched your Bob here, you can always come back with your highlight color and fit some in, cover some up, change things. I'm using a little bit of almost straight yellow ochre here just to give it an extra highlighting effect. There we go. I think some of this color, let's make this mountain just a wee bit bigger. We can always cover some of this up, and we definitely will. So you can always change things. When you make things a little bigger, you have options of what goes in front and where. There we go. Now, let's see here. I want to show you something here. I'm going to take a little bit of the white and some of this shadow color and really lighten it up. Add just a touch of blue to it. Making a different flavor here. Still kind of streaky, hopefully, but a little bit lighter. And this is where Bob takes a little bit and he puts a little indication of some cool snow, believe it or not, in the shadow here. He puts a little snow. Maybe it's so deep in shadow, you still have a little snow. It has not melted yet in some of these dark, deep crevices. Wherever you think they could be, that's where you put them. And, you know, whenever you like, you can change some things. Maybe this highlight, oop, wrong direction. Maybe this highlight comes down a little further. Don't forget to give any new highlight its own little shadow here. That helps keep that 3D effect alive. There we go. And then, with just a touch of the Van Dyke brown, pull that out nice and flat. Touch of the Van Dyke brown, he actually makes some deeper shadows here and there. So we've got all sorts of colors happening in this mountain here today. Our main shadow, our light snow in the crevices, a little bit of dark brown. And he goes back and forth a number of times until you find the combination that works. All these little dark streaks down here in the deep shadow, a little bit of that brighter snow in the shadow area. Maybe a little more snow right up in there. And if you don't like it, you just go right on over it and change it. Find the angles that you like, and then the colors as well. Cool, cool. It's a tiny little mountain, isn't it? So let's take our brush. This is just a clean 1-inch brush, and a lot of tapping. Getting some mist up in there again. Mist at the base of this mountain. Get something going here. But then, oh, here we go. We've got some yellow ochre, maybe a touch of the bright red, and all these different flavors starting to happen here. Some green. I got lots of choices here. Yellows and greens and reds and browns. And we're just actually going to just touch and lift. I'm using the corner of the brush because this is a smaller canvas. And, oh gosh, just pushing and lifting, creating all sorts of grass effects. Oh, all just stuff that's growing up the side of this mountain here and there. Using sort of short, very short little strokes. And as you know, a little bit of red and green together will start dulling and making browns and such. So you can figure out what colors work for you. It's all going to change dramatically. I know it looks a little weird right now. We're just putting some color out there, various shades, various values. And then, using our mostly clean brush, it has tapped it out, then we tap and bring it down and just let it fall away to mist. Bob spends a good portion of the episode on this, believe it or not. Lots and lots of stuff, so let me play around a little bit more with that. I'm going to go into a little bit of the sap green and cad yellow. There we go. Just start pulling. Little flicking. flicky flickies. If you want to darken things, I'm adding a little bit of brown to my mix. All sorts of stuff starting to happen here. And working my way down a little bit. Don't you worry. Whatever we don't like, we can cover up. Something like that. Clean my brush once again. And let's tap. Mystify it. The act of creating mist here by tapping. All sorts of stuff off in the distance here. There might even be a little bit of paint left in my brush. This is very free. This is a very free painting. I'll tell you what, you can even maybe tap up a little bit. Flick up, right up over those mountain colors. There we go. Like I said, this is a very misty painting. So whenever you clean your brush, go back at it. You can even swipe back and forth at the very bottom here. Create even more mist and such at the base. Lots of things happening. Alright, I'm going to use my larger knife here just to make it a little easier to mix up color. Let's get some of this out of our way. Now, we've got our... Let's see, let's make up a big batch. Black, a bit of brown, a bit of the sap green, and just a touch of blue, maybe a little crimson. Just going to make a big-ish pile. There we go. And let's take a little bit more brown, touch of the green. I'm going to make another pile here, a little bit more to the brown side. Then we got some different flavors happening. Let us find a small fan brush. Ooh. Here's an older fan brush. That should work. Working some color in here. You can always play around and find whatever color. But hopefully you notice here I'm not overly mixing it. I want those color variations to be there. So, with my handle up, I'm mostly tapping down. You can drag the brush a little bit, but it's mostly a tapping. The bending of the bristles is what makes this work. That's going to make some interesting treetops there. Pulling, bending, making some taller, making some shorter. All I care about are the tops right now. I'm just trying to figure out where these are living in our scene. Working my way down, covering up whatever I want. Whatever I have left at the base of the mountain, you get to figure out how much of it gets seen now. By covering up the bottom, we start to bring ourselves forward. So, loading some color, changing my strokes here. Let's let this travel right on down and around. I tell you what, kind of ran out of Van Dyke Brown. Now you see Bob out there, he filmed a lot of episodes all at once, all in one day. So he has a lot of color. I didn't make enough here, so it's easy just to whip some more out. There we go. Trying to keep these strokes very, very short. I don't want to go too far down into the water if I can help it. Figuring out where this line of trees lives. And then we'll come back and do some more stuff here. Just a second. Bear with me here. Working my way across. And what I like to do, without even really adding any more paint to the brush, if you ever have any of these gaps, you can still just wipe them right out. Just by pulling whatever's in your brush and whatever's here on the canvas, you can fill in those gaps. Bob sometimes called this, making fence posts. We want to try to avoid that fence post effect. So we just tap and fill in some of those. There it is. Lots of open space. Lots of opportunity for mist. If mist is in the title of the painting, you know we're going to be doing a lot. So, tapping. Look at that. Not wiping. It's definitely more of a tap. The bristles bending is what causes it to mix with the liquid white and create a misting effect. Now, you can always turn your brush a little bit sideways if you're running into the water, but we're crushing, we're smashing. Tapping, keep it moving here, getting some started, just beating the heck out of it. You want a sturdy easel, or at least one hand free to steady everything, and just start mashing and mashing. A little bit of this color at the bottom, not a big deal. It'll disappear. Look at that. Very, very nice. With the brush handle way up, I'm just lightly lifting, just to give everything a vertical feel to it. And don't worry about those little marks there. They'll go away. Okay. See that? Turns right into mist. Now this is fun here. I'm going to clean off my brush, wipe some of the excess paint off before going into my paint thinner. Cleaning out that brush. And of course, making sure that paint thinner is out of your brush. I'm going to go a little bit of that sap green. Oh, I'm going to run out of that pretty soon. And some cadmium yellow. I'll tell you what, a little bit of Prussian blue. Ooh, that makes green. Ooh, I like that. You figure out the flavor that works for you. Find the shade that you like. And now with a little bit of this yellow-green color, we're going to put in some highlights here and there on those trees. Just tapping, putting a little bit in there, reloading my brush as often as I need to. And you see that really adds something there. I got to try this more often. I watched Bob do this and just blew my mind there, putting highlights on these background trees. So easy. There we go. And once again, mash a little bit. Mystify the highlights as well. I like that. I like that so much, I'm going to keep doing it. Just a few spots over here as well. Give them a little flavor. Definitely misty. All right. Now you would think, with me having 40 or 50 of every brush here, I'd have more of them prepared. But that'll be my highlight brush. Let me come back. Let me get another fan brush here for my darks. This one will work. And let's make some more dark color if I don't have enough here. Get this dark sienna, yellow ochre out of my way. Let's mix all this up now. Black. Ooh, I tell you what, let's add some more crimson. Enough blue to really purplize it. And then all that black, brown, and green dulls that purple down to nothing. Oh, I gotta use use the rest of my green too. Oh well. Okay. Sometimes I'm going so fast I forget to take care of my paper towels. Making a big old mess here. Try not to bore you with too much effort here. Already we're at 30 minutes. Wow, Bob would have been done with this episode already on an 18 by 24. Here I am still fighting it on a 12 by 16. Lots of paint worked into my brush and that nice chiseled edge. Look at that wedge of color. Here we go. Let's make some taller trees. Get a little thing started here, as long as you can see it as a guideline for yourself. Then we just start tapping, letting those bristles bend and fold. Tapping, working from the center out, making sure that center is nice and dark. Gives it a very full appearance. Now, where do we end? I just want to start, have this tree end where the water starts. A little bit lower. There we go. How many trees? Well, that's always a question you'll need to figure out for yourself. A little grove of trees is all we're working on here today. Tapping and tapping and tapping. Love that mist. Don't kill it all, as Bob would say. Let some of that mist remain. Ooh, there's kind of a wide tree. If it's a little too wide, just make the tree a little taller, and you can change that, make it look a little more like what you were going for. There we go. Now down here, these trees all kind of melt into the land here. Where is our land? Bob created a heck of a depth and distance in his land here. The perspective is amazing. So let's see if we can't just bring some of this land out a little bit further away. Maybe give it a little push up. Give it a little bit of weeds and such. And then I'm working my way closer just by bringing it a little lower. Keeping this relatively flat as I do here. Now, we're going to have some reflection here. So let me just pull some color down. It's a little wider at the base, narrower at the top, so you want that reflection to be somewhat similar. A little wider at the top, narrow at the bottom. So, with my 1-inch brush, I'm just going to push inward, pull down, turn some of this land into water. Reflections in the water, to be very specific. Clean the excess paint out of my brush and brush sideways. Just like that, we have a nice little reflection starting in our water. And if you pull too much and you want more land, well, you can always tap it right back in and make the land flow however you want it to flow. Nothing wrong with cleaning it up a second time. There we go. Now with my highlight fan brush here, I'm going to add just the smallest amount of the liquid white. Bob would occasionally use other yellows here in the mix if you want to change the color. If you don't want to use liquid white, a very, very, oh so very small amount of paint thinner. And since I'm going to try to follow kind of what Bob did here, where I can, he actually made some trunks in these trees. This time, I can't think of another episode, he used yellow ochre to give a little indication of a tree trunk. He said he was feeling yellow ochre today, so let's play around and just a little indication there. Yeah, a little wider than I thought. Plus, you know, my yellow ochre is awfully thick. I'm taking a half a drop of paint thinner and I'm thinning my yellow ochre down. That yellow ochre that Bob was using was very, very soft. Mine is not. So, having to do a little happy little repair here. I'm going to take a little bit of that dark color and just mash over those trunks, and let's see about making them a little skinnier. So, a very, very small roll on the knife. We're just talking half a toothpick. And there we go, much thinner. As you know, a thin paint sticks to a thick paint. That first time, that paint was a little too thick. Now we're able to get some little thin lines here. Now, back to my highlight shade here. Let's put in some indications. Little glints of sunlight hitting those branches. Here and there. Got to find the angle here where you can just hit a few of those bristles. You don't necessarily want to strike the entirety of the fan brush there. There it is. Good. Now with a little bit of color still in my brush, I'm doing that push-up. My handle is a little bit over and up and pushing up. Mashing in some color here. I call this smashy grass myself. Working my way down, you see the bristles bending. It's what creates this grassy effect. You got to be careful here. Different thicknesses or thinnesses of the paint, how much paint is in your brush, will cause different effects to be created. So you got to figure out what works for you. Now, I'm going to clean out my brush here. This is the dark brush. And I've got my Van Dyke brown. Take some of that Van Dyke brown, maybe a touch of the dark sienna in it, doesn't matter. And let's create a little bit of shoreline here, just a little bit of dirt. Trying to keep this nice and level, horizontal, to define this water's edge. You can see I did less up here, more down here, longer pathways to help give a sense of depth and distance, getting the right perspective here. There we go. Now, clean out my brush. A little bit of the liquid white, dark sienna. Dance a little bit of this highlight over it. Maybe a little lighter. It's really up to you. Nice. With the tiniest amount of the liquid white, And I just mixed it in to make it a little off-white here, a little bit of this residue of the mountain shadow, so it's not super stark white. Little indications of, there we are, a little shoreline there, a little water kind of rippling up to the edge of the earth. I might clean that up in a little bit, but I'm going to go back to that dark color, the dark tree color, and maybe right there we're going to have another grove of trees a little closer to us. Like that. And let's see here, how far down do we go? I think we still have a little bit of water in front, so I'm not going to go all the way down to the bottom of the canvas, but let's cover up a little bit of the mountain there. That'll really help with the sense of depth and distance. Ooh, we got a nice tree. Nice big one there. Full one. You want this as a Christmas tree. A little more land here. Do we have room for a couple more? I think we do. Sometimes when all my paint is too flat, it makes it hard to load onto the brush. So put it right back up into a pile. Grab a little from the base of the pile at a time. And we are loaded up again. There we go. I think we'll have another one here. How about we have a big old daddy tree. Big strong one. I know I used to struggle making these big trees going too wide too soon. You know, the tree is this wide at the top. Woo, not much to go from there, except wider and wider and wider. So be careful. Change my land down here a little bit. Let's figure out our perspective. Ooh, a lot going on. This is a small canvas, so it can grow on you, that's for sure. Whoop, forgot to pull down just a little bit. There we go. We'll just turn some of this into reflection. I love this. The more you do this, you're just like, okay, I know how to do trees now, and you just drop these in. Gets easier and easier the more you do it. Touch of the liquid white. Let's bring down some more cadmium yellow. I like that. The Prussian blue does tint it a lovely green. If you're having trouble making the paint stick, I try to just push forward a little bit, get some paint right up on the tips of those bristles. Makes it a little easier for it to come off those first few tappers. There it is. This little one in the background, it doesn't need that much. Got some big ones here. Tapping, little clusters of highlights, I like to call them. Plenty of dark so that the highlights stand out. Just a little bit of that brush to make those small ones. Once you get down here into the body of the tree, then those frowns can be a little bigger. Right on down. Now Bob did something interesting here. This was just a lot different than how he made them in the later episodes here. A little bit of dark sienna, mostly dark sienna, a little bit of brown, and he would put on a big old stone, maybe a big old stone coming down here, right on down to the water. Then he would take, I'm going to do it, a little drop of the paint thinner, and he thinned down this yellow ochre, but my brush was too dirty. Helps to have a clean brush. Let's try that again. A little drop of the paint thinner to thin down this paint. Be very careful. That thinner, it can get away from you. A little bit of that, touch of the dark sienna. Ooh, I had some over here from my mountain highlights. And get some color up on the brush here and just give it a little graze over there to put a little highlight on there. I think he actually used a touch of the bright red in it. You could also use your knife and lay it on with the knife, just to give you a sense of how that works. I'll give it a try. You can just graze the knife over a number of different ways. And then, using our different colors and flavors of yellows and oranges and reds and greens, let's put some foliage down here. Some of this smashy grass. There it is. In and around these rocks. Maybe in front of the rock a little bit. Bury that rock a little into the scene. Now I think here we'll take a little bit of our knife. Since we're a little closer, maybe we'll see a little more rocky detail to our earth, just to give it a sense of detail. Since things are closer, they would be a little darker, a little bit more detail. And our highlight color, a little bit of white and dark sienna. Graze it over that earth. Maybe even a touch even brighter here in a couple of spots. There it is. And using the edge of our knife, maybe even the short edge. I got the large knife, you could use the small knife. Keeping that water line relatively straight. Ooh, let's bring a little bit of that out into the water. There it is. Touch a ripple here or there in the water. Give the water a little movement if you want to. And I think we got something here. That was super fun for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will take my liner brush. Where are we at? Just a little, under 50 minutes or so. Sign this painting. And, of course, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you're ever in Michigan area, come take a class with me. We'll have a blast. Thank you all. I'll see you in the next video.